The Second Punic War was probably the last chance any ancient power had at stopping Rome. It marked the rise of Rome's empire, with it gaining provinces in Spain and securing its dominion in Italy and Epirus. After a long and arduous struggle with Carthage, Macedon, and the tribes of Cisalpine Gaul and Iberia, alongside losing every battle in Italy, Rome finally managed to secure a victory at Zama and completely crushed Carthage as a significant player in the Mediterranean. One of the major battles in the war was the infamous Battle of Cannae, where the Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca managed to encircle and destroy an army of 80,000 Roman soldiers, critically reducing the male population of Italy, and forcing the Romans to let Hannibal have free reign over southern Italy. But what if, instead of Hannibal's army of 50,000 destroying the Roman army of 86,000, the Roman Republic managed to put down Hannibal's incursion into Italy at the supply depot of Cannae? Well, first, I'm going to give you some context. The Second Punic War can trace its roots to Hamilcar Barca's and later Hannibal's efforts to subdue coastal Spain for Carthage. The main reason they set out to accomplish this was for Spain's vast silver mines, which was officially meant to be used to pay off Carthage's debt to Rome after the First Punic War. However, the Roman Republic also had strategic interests in Hispania, as they called it, and began to set up relationships with various tribes and city-states. One of these city-states was Saguntum, which Hannibal besieged and sacked in 219 BC. Following this, the Roman Republic declared war on Carthage. The Romans quickly organized an army to invade Africa, but this was delayed by the fact that Hannibal had decided to march an entire army through the Alps right onto Rome's doorstep, which caused most Roman forces to march northward to meet Hannibal. The Romans ended up losing the ensuing battles of the Trebia and Lake Trasimene, allowing Hannibal to enter deep into Italy. Hannibal then decided to deploy for battle near the Roman supply depot of Cannae. The Romans decided to end Hannibal's incursion once and for all and levied an army of 86,000 soldiers to finally crush the Carthaginian general. Hannibal deployed for battle in an outward-facing U-shape, with his stronger forces on the wings with cavalry support. The Romans deployed in three huge lines with minimal cavalry to match Carthage. What ensued was a mass charge into the Carthaginian center, with Hannibal's forces in the center giving way to the superior Roman force. However, the Roman cavalry were easily beaten by the Carthaginian mercenaries, who then came back around and encircled the entire Roman army. At least 50,000 Romans were killed, with many more being captured. But what if the Romans were to win this battle? Let's think of a new scenario. The Senate of Rome, determined to finally crush Hannibal Barca once and for all, authorizes the creation of 8 legions, double the normal amount, to set out for Cannae. The army that sets out to engage Hannibal in the summer of 216 BC consists of 40,000 Roman infantry, 40,000 allied infantry, and 6,000 cavalry. Included in the army is 2 consuls, nearly a third of the Senate, many young sons of senators, and thousands of other nobles in the Roman Republic. As both armies encamped near Cannae, Lucius Aemilius Paulus, one of the consuls that year, did not think it would be wise to engage the Carthaginians here. But the other consul, Gaius Terentius Varro, thought otherwise. Varro would deploy in a 3-line formation, with the first 2 lines being full strength, while the third line would be weakened to support the cavalry in the wings, in case they were routed. As the battle began, the Roman army charged into the Carthaginian center, causing their line to slightly buckle, but according to Hannibal's orders, they slowly pulled back into an encircling movement. Meanwhile, on the wings, the Roman cavalry is routed, but the triarii reserves placed there managed to hold the Carthaginian cavalry to a standstill. The stalemate continues for a few hours, until in quick succession, the Roman center finally breaks through the Carthaginian center, and the Roman cavalry regroups and attacks the Carthaginian cavalry on the wings, which causes them to retreat. The triarii from the flanks managed to encircle the flanks of the Carthaginian center, while the cavalry chased down the exhausted Carthaginian center. The casualties for Rome are 6,000 dead, while Carthage suffers 30,000 dead and 15,000 captured. Hannibal flees the battle. A few days later, Hannibal is captured by a cavalry unit commanded by Praetor Publius Furius Philus near the Roman colony of Lucaria. The praetor drags Hannibal Barca across the Pomerium and into the Senate. There, Hannibal, looking among the senators, locks eyes with a military tribune, one Publius Cornelius Scipio. Publius would go on to attain the consulship in 194 BC, winning some minor victories against various Illyrian tribes, and would be barely mentioned in the historical record. The next year in 215 BC, 2 newly elected consuls set out with a combined army of 40,000 soldiers to besiege the city of Carthage itself. At the Battle of Carpus, the remaining Carthaginian army is decisively defeated. Following this, Carthage surrenders. Now, what would the result of the war be? Well, firstly, without Hannibal winning at Cannae, Philip V of Macedon would not have gotten involved, meaning that the First Macedonian War would not have happened, at least not when or how it did historically. Syracuse would not have defected to Carthage, which would have resulted in its continued alliance with Rome for at least a few more decades. The Romans would have likely still annexed Hispania and reduced the territory of Carthage to just the area of modern Tunisia, but the reparations wouldn't have been as harsh, and Carthage would have likely had greater political autonomy than it did historically after 20 years of war with Rome. As for long-term consequences, those are a bit trickier to predict. With Macedon not entering the war, Rome might have had less of an interest in Greece than it did historically. With Hannibal's main invasion route being through the Alps and Gaul, Roman attention would be there instead. The Romans would have subdued cisalpine Gaul and might have formed transalpine Gaul much earlier than it did historically. For the same reasons, they might have an increased presence in Illyricum to have a buffer from a land invasion from Greece around the Adriatic. Besides geopolitics, the fact that the war practically ended with Cannae would have meant that hundreds of thousands of male Romans would not have died in the war. This means that later down the line, Rome would have been able to field larger armies and have a larger population to settle new territories. The patricians would also have had greater numbers as Cannae wiped out many young senators and patricians historically. We could see the patrician families retaining much of their influence into the late Republic and the Empire, if an empire would even be formed. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and help me get to 1,000 subscribers. Also, be sure to leave a comment on what you think I should do next and any inaccuracies you might have spotted throughout the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. With Hannibal's main invasion route being through the Alps and Gaul, Roman attention would be there instead. The Romans would have seduced